Hi, this is the Black Creative Handbook podcast with your host, Cassandra Lauren Gordon, and I am here with...
John Wayne S. III.
Absolutely. So, John Wayne, introduce yourself.
I am a television film producer and writer. I've been producing for about 28 years. I'm originally from Chicago, but I live now in the great state of Texas.
Okay. As you can tell that you're over the pond, and I'm always trying to get my references so I know where all of these states and where you live. So Chicago, I've been to Chicago, the Windy City. I know that is. I'm trying to figure out where Texas is. It's down south, Houston,
Yes,
Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion. That's how I'm thinking. Okay.
yes. So Texas is right connected to Mexico, right at the bottom, connected to Mexico.
Cool. Thank you for clearing that up, just for the international audience. I just wanted to say that.
Yes.
Great. So you've been in the game for a long time doing the producing. We're going to get into that, but before we start, we're going to do the quick fire questions just to get to know you a little bit. So I'm going to ask you random things, and you just say what's on your mind, and then we get into your work and your processes. So, okay. Do you like toast or cereal?
I actually like both. As a preference, that's probably more of a cultural thing from across the states, because we can eat toast and cereal together. But if I have to choose, I prefer cereal.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple.
Why?
Well, the funny thing about it is, for a long time, I was a BlackBerry user. And BlackBerry was going to go away from having the physical keyboard. That's what I really liked about them, having a physical keyboard. And then when they decided not to do that anymore, I felt like I had to pick a side. I felt like when I got the Apple phone, I felt like I was joining a cult of people. So Apple was the easiest. It was the biggest sell point at the time when I was transitioning over. So I'm a loyal Apple user.
I hear you. I'm going to manifest on here that hopefully on this podcast we get some Apple sponsorship, because I'm part of the Apple cult. Well, not my PC, but my iPhone. I love my iPhone. So one day I'm going to get some Apple sponsorship, because I talk about Apple a lot. Okay, cool.
Into existence.
Why not? Okay. So Texas or Chicago?
Oh, I love Chicago. Oh, Chicago. If I could get the weather from Texas to go to Chicago, I would never leave Chicago. But because I don't like being cold, I really live here in Texas.
Okay. Documentaries or features?
I like them both. I'm a big news junkie, so I like information. So documentaries are always something I'm interested in. But I also like the big explosions, and I like the big production. So I like features.
Okay. Blue or yellow?
Blue.
Why is that?
Blue is, you know what? A lot of stuff I have is blue. I get this blue shirt on. I like blue. I didn't realize it was my favorite color until my daughter said, you got a lot of blue stuff. I said, I do have a lot of blue stuff. So I guess blue is my favorite color.
Okay, I'm hearing you. James Brown or Michael Jackson?
I think they're one and the same, just different generations. James Brown speaks to an audience that didn't have anything to really on a big stage that they can connect with. Black folks in America looking for somebody on the stage they can look and relate to themselves during that age, and also being able to work within the confines that he was in. Michael Jackson kind of took that to a whole nother level. He was able to talk to multiple audiences all over the world. There are very few artists who can actually communicate to the entire world. I'm not just talking about the big places. I'm talking about the little places in a jungle somewhere. Everybody knows Michael Jackson. There's not any generation, even little kids that now he's passed away, they know who Michael Jackson is. And I don't think we ever had that. And the idea that he was a Black man, it's amazing by itself. People don't really think about this. Everybody in the world knows this Black man. That's a very interesting concept. A lot of people knew James Brown, but everybody knows who Michael Jackson is.
Understood. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, what advice would I give? I guess I would tell them to stay the course. I've always been a very determined and focused, not to worry so much about what other people think, or you know, to really, if you have a direction that you want to go on, just keep going there, keep going that working it. It'll work out for you. And I think a lot of times early in my career, um, I was concerned about people's perception of me or how they took me. There was I know we're doing this short question. I'm gonna give you this little story. Before I was in front of the camera, I mean, behind the camera, I was in front of the camera. And I went to this audition for, it's going to tell my age, ABC After School Special. In the States, used to have this thing called ABC After School Special, where every day they would have like a movie. It was about 45 minutes or so. It was like a teen story or whatever, something about young people understand, but it was a special, it was a movie. And so I went to audition for it, and I had my monologue, and I'm talking to the casting director, which I know to this day. And after I finished, she said, that was really good. She said, but you're not Black enough for this part. That really kind of blew my mind. And she was Black. And it sent me through this spiral of trying to figure out what being Black was. What I realized ultimately at the end of the day, that no one can explain my Blackness. I am Black 24 hours a day. There's nothing really I can take away from that. But being a young person and impressionable, and you telling them something like that, I didn't understand what that meant. And so it sent me through this whole spiral of trying to figure out what that was. A self-discovery, which I probably really needed to figure out my own self, but it helped me really kind of to define a lot about what I wanted to do, not what I've been taught or how I've been raised, but what I thought about stuff, how I saw the world, and how that unfolds in my life.
Wow. Oh, that's very powerful to think about that, because yeah, at 18, there's so much newness in the world and can be impressionable, and people, it's after your formative years, but words can stick. So it's good that you explored that. So thank you very much for sharing that. The last question is, if you had an autobiography, what is the title?
The title of an autobiography. Oh, you stumped me there. People don't usually stump me. That's a stump one. I guess something like "This Is Who I Am." Accept it.
It's catchy. This is how I am. Accept it. Okay. It's nicely, just rose off nicely after that question. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so you talked about you've done 28 plus years into producing, writing, television, and into films. Let's start with early John Wayne. And I'm just like John Wayne S. the third. So does anyone say anything about your name before? Because it reminds me of maybe because I'm from the UK. So John Wayne, it feels like very yes, obviously you're American, but very like, if I'm being honest, is it Western?
Yes, I get it every single day.
Okay, good. I was just double checking, guys. Like, I could not talk to you unless I acknowledged it. I want to acknowledge it so I can just move on. Great.
It comes every single day. I think I've heard every John Wayne joke, every reference. But the one thing I always tell people when they start to say something about John Wayne, John Wayne's name was not John Wayne.
What was it?
Miriam. The studio changed his name. Yeah, Miriam, because they couldn't have a cowboy named Miriam. So his name wasn't even John Wayne. I come from a long line of John Waynes. So, they probably stole it from us, but his name was not John Wayne. That's something that they created.
Okay. We can move on now. I know you probably want to, I just had to okay, great. So let's talk about early, like how did you talked about you was like in front of the camera. So you started acting before you started producing and writing? Is that how you made your start in this creative field?
No, I started off as an actor. I was acting in Chicago, and kind of carry on to the story I told you before about when I went to the audition. The one thing I got out of that whole experience, I realized that the only way to ensure that I can do the projects I want is that if I'm producing and writing, I can put myself into anything. No one can make a determination if I'm going to do it or not. And so I still will act in some of the things I do, but I try to make it something that makes sense to the storyline and not just kind of insert myself into every single thing. So if it makes sense to the storyline, there's something that I can do that, makes sense, then I'll do it, but I don't do a whole bunch of it, but, I will do it every now and then. But as being a producer, no one can tell me that I can't put myself in a project. And so from that old experience where her telling me I wasn't Black enough, that led to that revelation of eventually going behind the camera.
Okay, so how many years did that make that switch? Like, was it 5 years, 1 year into acting? When did you make the switch?
You mean make to switch from acting to producing? Oh, that's a process. I mean, going into production, after I decided I wanted to go behind the camera, so I had to start off as a production assistant, try to understand, because I didn't go to film school. I was going to school to be a gerontologist. I wanted to be an old folks doctor. I was a pre-med major. I wasn't trying to be, into film. I wanted to do that. There's a story behind that. This, when I was preparing to try to figure out what medical school I was going to go to, this production manager called me and said that I had left a message on the answering machine about working on the indie film. And I said, no, I didn't. She's like, yes, you did. It's like, I don't know about film. And at the time, I was a manager at this parking garage in Chicago, and I had just lost my job. And so I figured, this might be interesting. I'll be interested. So I went in to see it for a second assistant director on the movie. And I went in to see the first assistant director. I had like a suit and tie on. I was all dressed up. And about 5 minutes, he realized I couldn't help him do anything. I knew nothing about films or how production worked. And so she calls me back like a week later and says that, well, you can't get that job because you don't really know anything about filmmaking, but we have this production assistant job in the art department. Would you be interested in it? She said it was like the guy they had got didn't have a driver's license. He's from Canada. Truth be told, mine was suspended at the time, but I said yes. They were working like 16 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 weeks straight, and the pay was $50 a week. And I said, yes, I'll do this. Ironically enough, the movie I worked on was a film called Scenes for the Soul. It was director George Tillman's first film out of film school. George Tillman has went on to do Men of Honor, all the barbershop movies. I mean, he's done a lot of big, amazing projects, but this is his first film out of film school. And I worked with him on this and worked with him some other things after that. But the movie has never, ever been seen. They sold it to a Doug Henry's company for like $1 million. And then the next week, Doug Henry company went bankrupt. So the movie has never been seen. But he went on to do Soul Food and a whole bunch of other movies, so it just kind of, his career just, flourished after that. But I met another guy who didn't go to film school, who went to this community workshop for directing. And during the time, that was, when you wanted a music video done, you either went to New York or LA. There was nobody in middle America doing it. Like now, people all everywhere do music. There was no such thing as that. You either went to New York or LA. That's where all the directors were. And people wanted to get music videos for stuff that wasn't even on the radio, which is crazy. And they were spending like $20,000, $30,000 on these type of music. But see, I come from actual filmmaking, where we actually use a film camera with film reels. And that's where I come from, the process of filmmaking. And the thing about it is when I talk to young people about filmmaking, I think that sometimes the respect for the process is lost, because they can just go get a camera. The editing equipment pretty much does a lot of things for yourself, all those filters. Back then, you have to figure all that stuff out. That was not something that you just push a button. It was like, you need to really, what do you want this to look like? And we really have to be very clear about what you want something to look like, And so we started doing music videos, and I've done maybe about 200 music videos over my career for artists all over the world. So during that time, this producer by the name of Steve Silk Hurley. Steve Hurley's worked with everybody from Madonna to Michael Jackson. And Steve is his claim to fame is that he was the first artist in the UK to have a dance song cross over to the pop charts. Nobody had ever done that before, and so he's a big house producer. And so he he was starting this, so, label and everything, this management company. And he asked me to come on as a publicist. And I was like, Steve, I didn't know about being a publicist. He's like, well, I think you could do it. And I ended up staying for 3 years and become the director of International A&R and ran his office at agents in the UK and Japan. So I say that when I started to go back to doing music videos, is that music videos are not about how great a music video director you are. It's about trust. Corporations, networks, distribution companies, although they traffic in creativity, but they're not creative entities. They just traffic in creativity. They have 401ks, they have pensions, and they don't want to do anything that's going to mess up their job. So when you go to them about doing music videos, it's a trust. If I give you this money, are you going to come back with something that I can actually use, that I can show to my boss? And because I knew everybody who commissioned the music videos at all the labels, I was able to do a lot because I knew who they were and they trusted me, So although I think I'm a pretty good music video director, I think it really just has to do with relationships and trust.
Okay, so there's a lot there for me to unpack, right? So there's a lot, because I heard was like, writing some notes, like we went to help to do being a publicist. I was going to talk to you later about how you get press and how you promote. So that's really good. And then you talk about music videos, which is a whole different like kettle of fish. And you talk about, networking and, getting that trust and delivering and promising. Okay, so let's start with the music videos, because you just glossed over it like it's just something like, okay, I did about 200 music videos to artists, blah, 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 blah. How, from not knowing anything from a job where you said you didn't, and how did you get to directing music videos? Like, that's a big jump.
Okay, so when I just started to want to be a production assistant, during that time, being a production assistant, a lot of times is just really getting coffees and being there, doing stuff for people. You do that for the big jobs, the way you work at. But as an individual filmmaker, I still will work on smaller projects with other people. So I was able to, I started off initially just producing and production coordinating. So people want to do music videos. And I'm a pretty organized type person. So they want to do music videos. They would come to me and I would help them produce it or be the production manager to manage the production, and they would direct. For a long time, I wouldn't direct. If you asked me about directing, I was like, oh no, I can't do that. What happened is that I was producing some music video. I got to deal with this. Let's go back to this caveat, how to get music videos. So back in the day, like now you can go on Google and find all the record labels and everybody, you can send an email and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. So they used to publish this book. I think it was called 911. I can't think of what it was, but it was a book that publishes all the record companies around the world. They come out every quarter. So you get this book and it lists their telephone numbers, contact information, everything. So what I would do as a producer, I said, okay, I want to make this amount of money this week. I'm going to call these people. So I would call like hundreds of people a week, 200 people, I would call them. And I would tell them this was my ploy to them. How many music videos you're going to do this year? And they said, I'm going to do 11. I said, okay, if you give me 4, I'm going to charge you the same price for all of them. I mean, there's some caveats in there, but this is a budgetary thing, because when you do music videos, there's cost overruns. You don't really know what it's going to cost. You got an idea, but it can go over. I'm going to charge you the same thing for all these 3 or 4 I'm going to do. And they will bite at that because it's like, wow, cost control, I can figure it out. So that's what I would do. Mondays and it would just blow my mind when I would fax them contracts, they would sign it and they would wire me money. That always blew my mind. It's like, you don't even know me. You just sending me 10, 20,000. They would do it. No, nobody does that now, but it's a longer process. But back in the day when we first started, somebody would call you, send them a contract, they would sign it, you send it back to them and they would wire you money. And then you do a music video, So that was my way of getting it to do it. And it worked for a very long time, into doing music videos, So when I got to deal with this one label, they wanted to do 3 music videos. And I had a go-to guy that I would use all the time, say, hey, do you want a couple of guys, but there's one particular guy I thought was a really good fit for him. And he had to go to London to work on a project and he couldn't do it. And I'm thinking, I've already signed this deal with these people. I don't know what to do because everybody else is not available. At that moment, I decided I was going to try and direct it. I said, okay, I'm gonna do this because I can't go back to them and tell them No. So that was starting. I was kind of pushed into it. If you had asked me the week before to do it, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it. But because out of necessity, I was pushed into doing it. So it just kind of happened that way.
Hold on. So, right, let me just tease something there. So I don't even know my background a little bit. My main medium, I am a jeweler. However, I've got into filmmaking, and one of my films or my documentary has been in London Independent Film Festival, which is showing next week. Producing and directing is two different skill sets, right? So I've learned by doing both, and directing is a different skill set. So how did you quickly get the directing skill set from being in production? Because I think I'm like you, I can do the production quite organized, get people together, scheduling, but to transfer what's in your brain, getting your shot list visually, and everyone gets the visual entity, what you want from your brain, to the finished product. How did you just learn that skill quickly?
I don't think it's a matter of learning. I think more or less it was more confidence. I had to feel the confidence that I could do it. It was already inside of me. I'm a visionary, if anything. I will trailblaze. I will go to courses nobody else will go. But directing is really about really communicating your idea to a team of people that in a way that they all understand. They all have to understand what your vision is. And you have to be clear about what your vision is. Because if you're not clear about what your vision is, then you got all these people wandering around just doing stuff they don't know what to do. So you have to be really clear about that. And so I'm and most directors to some degree are too. We have control issues. I have control issues. So I'm very clear about what I'm trying to do as a producer and also as a director. This is what I'm trying to do. And then I also come from the skill set of, let me tell this story. So a couple of years ago, I was at this press junket in Atlanta, and for a project I had directed. And, young people come up to you and they'll ask you all these questions about, how to get into the business, what course to take and things of this sort. And usually I have a real, canned response. But this young boy asked me how to do that. And I told him, I said, well, you have something very powerful that I didn't have. You have Google. If you ask Google the right question, you get the right answer. And he stopped and looked at me. And he said, you know what, John, I don't know what the right question to ask. And that made me start thinking about a lot of young people who don't have that. They want to move to the next level, but they really don't know what question to ask. I'm going to come back to that. But the reason why I say that is that I come from the period of time to where you have to read books to understand. And when you read in a book, all you're trying to look for this one particular answer, but you're retaining all this other information that you're reading. It doesn't seem to make any connection at that moment. And then when you get to the answer that you're looking for, you have that aha moment, like, I see clearly what I'm trying to do. But I've also retained all the information I had trying to find that answer. So when people come to me and they ask me a question about something, I answer, well, how do you know? I said, I probably read it somewhere, but it's in my mind. If you could just go to Google and ask the distance from the sun to the moon, you don't have to remember it because Google is always there and it's going to be right there. But if you have to read something, you're going to retain that so much better. And then you're going to get all the other information you have that you were not necessarily looking for, but it's in your mind. It's in your subconscious mind. So understanding the relationship between where you're trying to go with a project, because see, I'm a writer too. So I create stuff every single day. So I have an idea. When people come to me about ideas, I say, look, if you're trying to get me to do something, don't ask me about an idea right at the moment. Because see, once you get it in my mind and it starts rolling, I'm not going to be able to stop. So don't do that. Let's set a time appointment to kind of figure stuff out. But I'll come up with stuff. I'm really good with creating stuff. You could come to me with a piece of wire and I can tell you a whole story about a piece of wire just like that. So I try to really be selective in how I use my creativity. Once you have an idea as a writer and I know how to put that on a page, then I know how to bring that to life. Then as a producer, the producer in my mind is the person who kind of keeps the director and the writer in this place because they deal with the reality of what you can do. So the writer and the director wants to do everything. They want to see the world in such a big way. But the producer says, yes, that's great. But this is the reality of what we can do. And so I have a pretty good balance of being a writer a director, and that producer who's telling me what I can and cannot do.
Okay. All right. So let me just delve into the directing bit. So I have because you seem to be so like experienced in that. So being very clear in what you communicate. How do you do that? How do you have any good tips on how for first-time directors or very not experienced directors? How do you tell your crew this is happening and to make your advice good?
Everybody communicates differently. You know, some people communicate, they have to use storyboards, some use shot lists. You have to find a thing that you, first of all, know how to communicate effectively. What is it that, how do you communicate with people to a way that they understand what you're saying? If it's even verbal, it's, you know, getting clips of other movies and things like this is what I'm looking for, or can you verbalize that in a way that they understand it? Understanding the person that you're talking to and their mindset and their skill set, how can I use it in examples and ways to where they would understand that? You know, so once you figure out what your audience is, the people that you're talking to, then you relate. So if you're doing a movie about skaters and these people are, you know, they're all chefs, you have to find things in their world that will make them understand what you're trying to do. And if you can effectively make the connection between their world and what you're trying to do, then they'll be like, oh, I get somebody's a sports person and they love sports and you're trying to communicate this movie. You have to relate it to sports to where they would understand how that works. So it's really about understanding your audience and understanding the people you're talking to and trying to find connections in ways that they would understand that.
Understood. This podcast is always about the how and the process. And what I found by sometimes, I don't know if you've had this, but you deal with different crew members, right? And on different projects sometimes. How do you get the cohesiveness, or how do you get the trust of that crew? Because sometimes I've learned that if the crew's not together, if something's wrong with the crew, you might not have a great product, or there's going to be challenges. So you working with so much different people, I don't know if you stick to the same people or if you're with new people. How do you make sure everyone is just, you know, have that shared vision, everyone kind of gets on and just heads with that goal?
So in a lot of ways, it's really about the process of picking people. I work with different people. I work a few people the same, but pretty much, you know, the different people, especially if I'm shooting in different parts of the country. Excuse me, you don't always get a chance to do that. The core people, the other producers and writers are pretty much the same, but costumers, so prop masters, they're going to be different. So it's really about at the process of talking to people and you're getting to know them. You'll know in your heart if this person is going to see. They don't necessarily need to bond with everybody in the crew. They just need to bond with you. They need to understand that we on the same page. And if we on the same page, it doesn't make a difference to all the other people. We got to be on the same page. So I look for people that I know I can work with, even if they don't get along with other people or they have issues with other people. I can make a connection with them to where we understand what we need to do. Also, you need to find team players, people who are about the bigger thing. If they're there just to get a check, I don't want that person necessarily working on my project. I want them to, everybody has to eat. Everybody needs to, to work. But I want somebody who believes in what I'm doing. When people, even from investors to people that you work with, people are not necessarily buying into what you're doing. They're buying into you. When I go to an investor, I can tell them whatever story, but if they believe in me and what I'm doing, then it doesn't make a difference what I'm doing because they believe in me. And it's like, okay, I feel like John can make this happen, but if they don't buy into who you are as a person, they don't connect with you as a person, it doesn't make a difference. It's always going to be a problem. It's always going to be a problem. So you really have to find people that you can connect with, that you all on the same page, that you can relate. There's something about you all, the spirit, that you can relate to each other and say, hey, this is, we on the same page. We like similar things. We got kids, or we got family, whatever the case may be, or we both like popcorn. Whatever it is, when you're talking to that person, you're interviewing them for a position, you really need to have a conversation, come to Jesus in some aspects of who they are as a person and will this work for me? Like, for example, for me, I'm not necessarily a morning person. If I have to shoot in the morning, I have to get my mind together to be able to shoot in the morning. So especially when it comes to producer parts, I try to find people who are morning people. Because if before 10 o'clock, I'm not really that great of a communicator, honestly. If it's not more than yes and a no, I can't help you. If you start asking me what the meaning of life is, you're going to be lost because I'm not going to be able to communicate. Now, after 10 o'clock, whatever you need. But I'm also a person who up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning too. I'm a night person. That is where I get my best work. One, because during the day, people are constantly calling me and send me messages, and I don't really get a chance to. But at nighttime, 12 to like 4 o'clock in the morning, I get the most work done, even from writing or just paperwork and everything, because nobody's really. But that's when my mind stops to work. So directing is really about understanding who you are and understanding the things that I know what my weaknesses are. So I seek out partners that and technical people who have those strengths. As a leader, it's not all about me. Filmmaking is a cooperative process. I'm not just making movies for myself. I'm making movies for people to see. Unless I'm Steven Spielberg, because Steven Spielberg can do whatever movie he wants to do. It doesn't really make a difference. But because until that happens, I'm doing movies that people want to see. So I have to take the ideas and interactions with other people to bring this creative life. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never done anything that comes out exactly the way I envision it. Never. Because some things don't translate from paper to screen very effectively. And then there's some things just either budgetary constraints to do it, or it seemed really good when you wrote it, but it just did not, it didn't come out that way. And so I always tell writers and other producers that I work with, the only people know is me and you. Nobody else knows. So if I had to change the song or I had to do something differently, nobody's going, why didn't you do it the way? They don't know. They only know the finished product. So don't get so attached to things. This film or television show, or whatever you're doing, I try to equate it to my project as children. There are two types of children. There's the child that you keep in the house and you don't let go outside and just, you safeguard them. And it's the one who goes in the street, he goes a couple of streets over, you don't worry about him. So when you get a project, what is this? Is this the child that you're going to keep in the house, or the child you let roam? And if it's a child to keep in the house, then you need not to express that with everybody, because they're going to have their critique. They're going to have ideas about it. So you need to keep that more closer to yourself. But if it's an idea, it's just an idea that you came up with. Be free about sharing it, changing it. It's okay. It's a means to an end to get to where you're trying to do. It doesn't have to be like, we got to do exactly like this. It's okay. We're collaborating together. So if you have an idea that everybody feels like it effectively work really well, then just go with it. It's okay.
Wow. Just listening to what you're saying about the two children thing, like I'm registering that, like, yeah. That is really good. Thank you for sharing that gem. I wrote down here when you're talking about investment. That is so key. I'm sure you get that all the time. How do I raise funds? How do you raise funds? For me, so far, it's been self-funding and just prayers, and people just rock with me. But, if you want to move up, like, how do you get investors? How do you fund? What are the gems you can give to this audience?
So when it comes to investing, there is no easy way. Even, Tyler Perry has a problem with getting funding. Spike Lee, they all have a problem getting funding. What I would say about funding is that you have to kind of think outside the box when it comes to that. I'm going to give you an example. I had done some music videos, and when I wanted to do commercials, the agencies wouldn't let me do commercials, because they said music video directors can't do commercials because music videos are 3 minutes and commercials are 30, 60 seconds. You can't work in that space, which is crazy, but that's what they said. So I had to go out and convince people to let me do commercials. And once I did several commercials from, local or regional companies, then I went back to them and said, okay, fine, United, we're gonna let you do commercials. When I wanted to do features, they said to me, well, you only done music videos and commercials. So, this long narrative, you've never done that. So, we can't give you traditional finance. We can't give you traditional finance because you don't have that. You need a completion bond, especially when dealing with certain investors, to get it. But to only get a completion bond, you've had to have done a feature. So it's a catch-22. How do you get one or the other? So when I have done several movies before I did Red All Over, but I come from the age to where we would print these movies, put them on DVD, and we just go sell them. Red Alert was my first movie that was widely distributed, to where everywhere. You could pretty much Google it and it's pretty much everywhere. When I wanted to get money for that, because I hadn't done a wide distributed film, they gave me with that, you need the completion bond type thing, and nobody would give to me because it's like you had never done it before. So I had to start thinking out the box. So what I did was I went to record labels and media companies and I told them, you have music that you're trying to get in front of your audience. You already got your audience that you're trying to retain, you're trying to get new. How do you get a new audience? I said, I can show you a way to get people to listen to your music who traditionally would never listen to it. They said, well, how? When you go to Walmart or you go to Redbox, you buy and rent movies based off of a picture. You don't get to see anything. You're just looking at a picture. And so people buy stuff like that all the time. And then once you buy it, it's kind of pretty much, well, you don't like it, but you've already bought it. When people go to iTunes and they search for whatever their favorite music is, let's say it's country music, they're not looking for hip hop artists. They're just looking for country music. They're never going to just buy a rap song. They're not going to do that. But if it's inside of a movie, they're going to buy it, because once they buy the movie, they buy the music. So it's a way to get your music in front of people who traditionally would never listen to your music. In essence, you're selling your music. And so I went to media companies and record labels and convinced them of that. A lot of people thought it was a really good idea, but they didn't really know that space, so they wouldn't do it. So I did find one person who said, okay, you know what? I don't know anything about that, but I'm going to take this ride with you. And I was able to convince them to do it. And that's how Red All Over got done. And so I try to find unconventional ways of presenting things to people. I tell young guys all the time, there's tons of money in your city. The money, even if we're in a bad economy, money has a winning, just people are just being tight with their money. You have to really kind of look at like, for example, going where you are and look at billboards. Billboards are expensive, not digital ones, just regular traditional billboards are very expensive. Who are putting these billboards up? They have money. They have money they can invest like that. Dentists have money. They're doctors. People don't really pay too much attention to them. They're dentists for some reason. They've been a really big source of money. They invest in projects. They do. So you have to really kind of look unconventionally around you. The money and the opportunities around you, just got to really kind of look in your world and think about the people that you know. Think about the connection. You're probably 4 or 5 connections from the person that you really need. But if people don't know that's what you're trying to do, they're not going to give you the information. If you let people know this is what I'm trying to do. Social media, back in the day, you have to really call people and tell them. But now with social media, you could say, hey, look, I'm looking to raise money for this particular project. This is what it's about. Is anybody interested? GoFundMe's, Indiegogo. There's a lot of ways of getting your word out there. But I tell people, young filmmakers, the best source of your initial funding is going to come from your friends and family and from yourself. That is going to be the best place, because they support you. Now, as you move up, depending on your friends and family for support is not always the best thing, because see, the thing about your friends and family is that although they love you and you went to high school with them and everything, they're not going to buy stuff. They're just not going to do it. They did not. You have to focus on the people who don't know anything about you, who just like your work and buy it. Getting your friends and family to buy it, I love my family, but I'm pretty sure only a third of them has actually seen any of my stuff. I don't hold them against them. It's just, okay. But the most people who look at my stuff is people I don't know anything about. I get messages all the time. People already like this. I really like this film. I like this project. I like this. I don't know anything about them. And those are the people that you go after, So from an investment standpoint, from a young filmmaker, initially you need to go to your friends and family. But when you get to a certain point where you really need to get some, significant amount, you need to kind of look at your community, and there's some opportunities there. You just need to look at them.
Thank you for that. Thank you for just telling the truth. It's not easy, because some people it's the hustle. I see hustle in your, because it feels like, if you don't mind me saying, it's just like no matter what, you will find a way. And I always say things are always figure outable. You always find a way. If you really want something, you'll find a way to do it. So thank you for sharing the truth of how you get what you need. If you need funding, you just got to hustle for it. You just got to find these unique opportunities. All right, there's so much things I wanted to ask.
This.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I want to say this one. I went to this one guy, this one producer, to ask him to help me on the project. And I told him what I was trying to do. And he said, look, John, what you're asking for, I can't really help you at this moment because I'm working on a whole bunch of other stuff. He said, but you know what? I know for a fact you're going to get this done because in our conversation, you were very determined. And at the time when he said that, it's like, he just blew me off. He's not going to, he really helped me. And he was right. I did, just like you said, I did what it takes to get it done. And you got to have that in your mind that this is what you need to do.
Thank you for sharing that. See, you just got to be, you can't be defeatist in this. No one owes you nothing in this world. And you just got to do what you got to do and just make things happen.
Yes.
There's two things. So I think I couldn't catch it when you first told your story about you was a publicist and you worked for these European and Japan offices. Could you just go back to what that role was?
Okay, so I worked for Steve Hurley. He's a music producer. So he had a company, and I started off as a publicist.
Yeah.
Helped him, get his brand out there, and then eventually become the director of International A&R that ran his office and agents in the UK and Japan. So that's the person responsible for, in his case, getting remixes, getting production, getting opportunities for himself and also for the other producers that work for the company.
Okay, so when I was hearing that, so maybe I didn't hear it properly. When I was hearing that, all I heard was publicist, and I thought you did like other stuff. So how you seem to be really good for the movies which you're promoting, Ebony Hustle, Red All Over. How do you get the press? Sorry, with my mouth. How do you get the press? How do you promote yourself and your brand if you don't have $1 million of marketing spend? How do you do that?
So getting press is a combination of a variety of different things. One, it's about research. You really have to spend, if yourself or somebody else do the research. You can hire a publicist. I mean, they'll pretty much do all the heavy lifting. Or for me, I do a combination of, I do have a PR agency I work with, but then I also, I'm responsible for my own press too. The reason why we're talking, because I'm responsible for my own press too. I'm responsible for just because something is important to me does not mean it's an emergency for somebody else. So
can you just say that one more time? Because I resonate with that so much. Say it one more time, please.
If just because it's important to me does not mean it's an emergency for anybody else. And the thing about it is, I tell people all the time, I'm a filmmaker. I want to do film. That may not necessarily be what you're trying to do. When you woke up this morning, it wasn't trying to be a filmmaker. So I try to be cognitive of other people's time and things that I ask of them, because that's not their dream. I guarantee you, in their mind, you're not the star of their dream. There is no conspiracy to keep you from something. They're not up there all day like, how can I mess up John? They're not. I guarantee you, in their mind, they're the star. What can they do to move their life and their ideas up forward? So you have to find people who are on the same page. I'm a filmmaker. They want to do wardrobe. Great. Let's work together because I'm kind of helping where you're trying to go. This person is an artist and he's doing storyboards. Great. Let's do storyboards together. But if I'm going to an investor and a lot of people come to them trying to get money from them, they didn't wake up. That wasn't to give me money. That wasn't what their thought process was. So I try to be humble by that, thank you. Every time somebody says yes to me, they probably said no to somebody else. So I am thankful that every time that somebody wants to collaborate, somebody wants to speak to me, somebody wants to talk to me, because they don't have to. Nobody's required to talk to me. Nobody has to do that. If they do it, it's because that's what they want to do. And I have to be humble and grateful for that. There's only 24 hours in a day. And if somebody decides to spend 45 minutes or whatever with me, they spend 15 minutes of conversation talking with me, I'm grateful for that.
Understood. So research, you're responsible for your own destiny. You're the CEO of your life. You cannot just wait for other people to have the same dreams, passion, what you have to. You have to determine that. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect. Yeah, I do minimal editing. We're just going to roll with it because it is what it is. And we've got to do what we have to do. So come on, internet gods. Come on now. Be nice. You've been nice to us so far. So keep on doing what you're doing. I was just saying, yeah, I was just repeating, just saying, yeah, you have to control your own destiny. You can't just wait on people. You're not their priority, basically. You have to do what you have to do and push that there. Okay. So
but I want to say this about
ahead.
that. Let me say this about that. A lot of people come to me. I did this interview not too long ago, and this guy, and I didn't really think about this until he said that. He was like saying, "Oh, you're doing so much in your career, you've done so much," and he said, "But you also, just you got to do that with balancing your life." And I do all the stuff that I do, but I also have a life too outside of this. It is not easy. Sometimes I have to motivate my own self. So I don't want anybody to think like, oh, just God just get up and he just be almost. Sometimes I'm not motivated. Sometimes, even with all the things I've done in my career, sometimes I get depressed and I get discouraged, So it is not an easy thing. You have to have that goal in your mind and say, you know what, it's going to work, and you have to work. Now, you need to be realistic too. I mean, some people sometimes have very unrealistic expectations. I had these artists come to me years ago, and they wanted me to help manage them. And so I said, okay, I like to mitigate expectations. So you tell me, in 6 months, what do you see yourself? And they said, well, in 6 months, we want to be on BET, we want to be on tour, blah, blah, blah. And I said to them, that's possible, but probably not probable. I said, let's think some more goals, like, do you have your publishing company and stuff in place? Have you copyrighted your songs? I mean, have you done the basic foundational stuff to ensure that you would be successful? They didn't want to hear that. They wanted to hear that they was going to be on BET. It's not like it's impossible. It's just not probable. Nobody is created overnight. Honestly, nobody is created overnight. It takes a process. You're trying to integrate yourself into some very big machines. And these machines are not just sitting there waiting for you to come. If somebody comes to me with a film and I help them get distribution, it's not going to be out tomorrow. It's probably a year from now, because it got to be integrated into the machine, And so sometimes people don't see that. All they see is that I want the success right now, and it just doesn't work that way.
Okay. I hear you. Okay. There's a few things before we get into the more feature films, which I know about, is Ebony Hustle and Red All Over. It's about the networking. I really want to highlight that, because you seem to network really well. Any tips of, if you want to build your village, build your teams, how can we effectively network in the film industry or the creative industries?
Mm-hmm. So I'm be honest with you, that is probably my weakest point. I'm not a really good, by nature, I'm a loner. I do like people, and I do, enjoy talking to people, but that is not my strongest point. I think that if I was a little bit stronger, then I'd probably be more alone than what I would be. So I try to seek out other producing partners who are very good with that, who are very good with politics and kissing the babies. Now, I will go and kiss the babies and have the drinks and everything, but it is not my go-to thing. I have to really put myself in situations to actually go and do it. When I do it, I'm very effective in making things happen. It's just that by nature as a person, I'm just not that type of person. And so that's something that I try to work on, and try to really kind of put myself in those situations. On the surface, people are like, man, I know a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that I effectively turn it into effectively monetize those relationships. And one thing about it is that a lot of times people know people, they don't know how to monetize their relationships. They feel like, well, it's my friend and I don't want to be, but people do business with people that they like. Your friends would do business with you if you're presenting something that they were interested in. So you have to find ways to monetize your relationships. I mean, you want to be respectful. You want to be just have friends just because of, what they can present. But if they believe in you as a true friend and they want to see you succeed, just like you can find opportunities to help them succeed too, So networking is really about, you have to just put yourself out there, and I probably should do more videos about my people like to buy into your personal life. They do, you know, and I'm pretty guarded about that. But there's ways of putting myself out there or putting yourself out there on social media and just in general. Like, you know, I do a lot of panels. I go to a lot of universities and talk to students. I do a lot of that, which I don't really publicize a lot. So people will call me and say, hey, can you come and talk to my class about producing and creativity? And so I do a lot of those type of things to give insight to it. And I probably should publicize that more. But you really have to just let people know what you're doing. And if they know what you're doing, they're like, hey, we were looking for somebody like that. But if they don't know, they're just not going to do it.
They don't know, they don't know. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the two films which I know about, Red Over and Ebony Hustle. How did you come up with the concept as a writer and a producer to the screen? So tell us a little bit about the story, not too much because we want people to watch it, because I know it's streaming. So, and it's out there in the universe. So tell us about the stories and...
Okay, so Red All Over was really the example that I gave you before about trying to get funding for the project and how you do it. So initially the concept was to build music and build a story around it that has some social issues. So Red All Over is about gun violence. It is about the both sides of gun violence. When people see a shooting where someone has got shot, traditionally what happens is that they demonize the person who did the shooting. But most young people don't get up in the morning and decide they're going to shoot somebody. That's just not what happens. There's a story behind it. The tagline for the movie is that before you choose a side, understand both. And so I really tried to tell both sides of the story. I really tried to tell what happens to the young boy who did the shooting and the young girl who got shot, her family life. Why was she at the park in the first place? How did the boy get the gun? What's his family life? I try to tell both of those sides. And so in the end, you see the ramifications of what he did. I'm not taking away from what he did, but to understand that now that you see both sides of how something happened, when you see those things on television, you have to kind of think of like, wow, I wonder what his story. I think about this when I was in grammar school. I had this teacher who was, I think she was a math teacher. I can't think of what she taught, or a homeroom teacher. She was really, really mean. She was like really mean, just like real stern. And I never could understand it. So one day every day her husband would come pick her up. They had like this Thunderbird. And he would be out front of the house, in front of the school, and he would come pick her up. But one day I saw him in the car, and he was literally sitting in the passenger seat peeing from the car. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, I have no idea what she is going through on a daily basis. I don't know, and so you don't know what people are dealing with. You don't know. You see somebody shooting somebody, you don't know the backstory. And so don't be so quick to jump to a conclusion about somebody's story. Try to understand both sides, or at least understand the other side of the story than what you initially were being presented. Now, Ebony Hustle, honestly, I was not trying to do Ebony Hustle. That was not something in my plan to do. I had some other projects that I was trying to do that was not Ebony Hustle. Ebony Hustle came from a lot of things that we do is streaming service and distributors that come to ideas and concepts, and they want us to shoot them and flush them out. So a lot of times they may have like an idea, like I saw this TV show or something like this. In this particular case, the distributor came and said that they want to do a movie about a cougar, an older woman who likes young guys. But they wanted kind of more blaxploitation, like Pam Grier thing. So first I was like, well, I don't want to do a blaxploitation movie. I don't want to do that, being a Black filmmaker. But how can I manage what they want to do and what I feel like I can do as a filmmaker? So we came up with Ebony Hustle. So Ebony Hustle is an ex-stripper turned private investigator. What she does on a daily basis is workers' comp fraud and disability fraud. So when someone has those type of issues, they will go and ask her to go and make sure that this claim is legitimate. This particular case, this particular time, a woman from the neighborhood sees her and asks her to help her with her daughter. Her daughter, 16-year-old daughter, went missing. She went to this concert for this guy named Caleb Truth. Caleb Truth is an ex gangster rapper turned pastor. He's a mix between Kanye West and R. Kelly. He likes young girls. They got a God complex. So Ebony's first response is, I don't do missing kids. You need to go to the police. And the lady's like, look, no police. I need you to help me because you take care of hood problems. And she's like, okay, fine. So she eventually goes and get the girl and brings her back. So it's a movie about child exploitation. It's about a strong woman knowing exactly who she is and making the transition from being a stripper to being a private investigator and using those abilities as a stripper to get information from people. What she does, she uses people that she knew when she was a stripper to help solve cases, like other strippers, other bouncers that she knew back in the day. They're working here and they're over here, this place. She uses all those things she knows to try to get what she needs to do. She does it very effectively of getting that down. Let me ask you this question. When is this, when will you release this podcast?
In the next couple of weeks. So I don't know exact date, but it's in April.
Oh.
You can hear me, hopefully
I'm
you can
sorry,
hear me.
It broke up.
I was just saying in the next couple of weeks in April. I don't have an exact date, but definitely in April.
Okay, that's fine, because I wanted, if it's not gonna come out, then I can say it. So the movie got released on December the 1st. After about a month, the distributor called me and was like, this is really good. We need it too. We need a second version. So I'm officially saying it now. So by the time it's come out, it already be, because I haven't released this information yet. And we're going to be doing a second installment of Ebony Hustle.
Congrats. That's huge.
Yeah, I lost you.
I was saying good things. I was saying congratulations. Can you hear the good things over the pond? I was just saying congrats on having the second part and getting that. That's great. So it's such a great success you get to, because I know how hard it is trying to get things made and people to, so thank you for sharing that and breaking it here. I appreciate that. I hope you can hear me. I can see you, John Wayne. I can see you.
I didn't hear any of that. I'm sorry.
Oh man. I said I can hear you, John Wayne. I can hear you, John Wayne the third. I can hear the lineage. I can hear everything. So sorry about that. I was just saying thanks.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
So as we come to the end of this podcast, I was just trying to think, what is the best things people said about your work and about your films and about your writing? What was like the best testimonial you've had?
I'm sorry. I did not hear what your question was.
That's fine. Third time lucky. What is the best thing people have said about your work?
Oh, okay. The thing about it is, what always gets me about my work is, even now, I get this. When you actually see it on the screen, and we're actually shooting, somebody's actually, we've actually shot something that I actually wrote. I'm very fascinated by that. To actually see people saying my words, I'm very fascinated by that. When people see it, I will hope that they get from it is that I try to tackle multiple sides of stuff. I try to tackle subject matters from different perspectives that people traditionally don't think about it. People tell me that I'm a very good storyteller. I get that a lot. I'm a very good storyteller. So I try to tell really great and insightful stories in hopes that people be drawn into the characters to want to, engage with them or at least root from. I think about Power, the TV show Power.
I hear about it. It's the 50 Cent thing, but I never watched it.
Okay, so there's a character named Tariq, and he's like a young boy, and he is just bad. He just do some really just like, and he gave this interview, and he was saying that people come up in the street and they be like, you need your behind whooped because you should have done it. He'd be like, it's a character, man. It's not. Really. But the writing and his abilities as actors draw people into it where they take it as a real person. And that is a very powerful thing, to take your characters from script to screen, and people come and they interact to you as those characters, and they have insight like, you shouldn't have done that. You was wrong. And that is amazing. that is amazing. So when people do stuff like that and they say things about that, you know, why did you let Ebony do that? I'm like, okay, she's not real. It's not a real person, you know, but I'm always encouraged when that happens.
Okay, understood. So as we're wrapping up, where can the people find you? Obviously, we're going to put things in the show notes, but for the, you know, our ears and for the visuals, where can we find you and connect?
So across social media, I'm John Wayne S. the Third across every single platform, from Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. My company is London Town Pictures, LONDYN Town Pictures. That's pretty much across all social media platforms. So if you go to Google and type in John Wayne SIII, everything about me will come up.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your successes. Thank you for being so detailed about the processes. And thank you for rolling, even though we had a bit of the technical stuff, but it's okay. We're all connected. So I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. So this is the Black Creative Handbook with your host, Cassandra Lauren Gordon and John Wayne S. the Third. Speak soon.